staying at home mostly?
Yeah, mostly. I'm starting to get out a little bit more. I just started using our gym again, so I started going back to the gym 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, that's about the extent of travel that I'm doing. But the stores around here just opened back up, so you can go in there. You know, I'm sure it's the same for you guys, but you can go in the stores now if you have a mask. So I like, you know, other than just grocery stores. So like you can go into, you know, there's like Dunham Sports. I don't know if you guys have Dunham where you're at, but it's like a just kind of like an outdoors place, and it's starting to get nicer around here. So I'm like getting my stuff.
I know you get
like that.
restless and
yeah.
This is the whole situation is crazy, just how it happened and how quick it, you know, shut everything down.
I was like, I wasn't really buying it. I was starting to hear about the coronavirus, and I wasn't really buying it. I was like, whatever, you know, like it's not gonna be.
Yeah, that's how everybody was, and then
like 2 weeks later, you know, we were all in lockdown. So.
What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. We got a special guest, Joey Spencer, Michigan representative, Linden to be specific.
Yes, sir. What's up?
How you been, man?
I've been good. I've been really good. Just staying home like everybody else, and just waiting to get back in the ring. Hopefully soon. Just waiting on that call.
How has it been? You know, I know it's crazy times in the whole world.
Yep.
A lot of widespread panic and stuff like that. Just from being a fighter and not being able to do certain things. So I'm assuming you haven't been able to spar and things like that. So how has that been?
It's been different, you know, not being able to spar, and there's still things you can do. You know, our gym that we train out of, I've still had access to that. So I've been able to go in the gym, you know, use the heavy bags and do some strength and conditioning and things like that. And obviously running. And so it's not entirely like you can't train at all, but obviously, like you said, you can't be sparring and stuff like that, because obviously you're so up close with the people and that you'd be sparring. So, you know, there hasn't been any sparring, but there hasn't necessarily been needing to have too much hard sparring anyway, because we don't have dates on the books. So, you know, just started regular training routines like the running and in the strength and conditioning and things like that have been, you know, good and have been, you know, all that we really need right now anyway.
All right. On a scale of 0 to 10, because some people are faring pretty well with it, and then some people are like really struggling, feeling cooped up and stuff. On a scale of 0 to 10, where's your mind at, you know, in terms of the being quarantined and having to stay at home and not, you know, just not having regular access to the life we all know?
Yeah. So the first month of it really was bad. Like I was,
because
really
I know
struggling.
Sorry to cut you off, but I know you do a lot of outdoor stuff. Like,
yes.
With it.
And that's where I was headed towards. You know, it was like winter. You know, it was still snowing and freezing cold and freezing rain and stuff like that the first month for us. So we were literally just stuck. You know, nothing to do. And then right when the weather broke, it's like I'm great. You know, I'm really happy. I don't, you know, everything that I do for fun, I can do it now. You know, I'm about 5 minutes where I'm at from the lake that I fish at, and you know, hunting season opened up and the weather broke, and so I was pretty much busy, you know, all times of the day doing something outdoors and doing something outside and just enjoying myself. I mean, that's what I like to do more than anything. So, you know, I'm gonna miss this time. I get so much time just to focus on being outside and just being able to be in the woods, and it's great for me.
Absolutely. Now, as a fighter, without the ability to spar, how do you stay sharp? You know, being that you're limited from one of the things that keeps a fighter the sharpest.
Yeah. So I mean, the way to do that is just more than even bag work and things like that for me. But I do a lot of shadow boxing. I think that's a key to stay sharp and make sure the fundamentals are on point. You know, and just having, you know, in my case it's my dad, but having my coach watch me shadow box and hit bags and things like that. I'm able to, you know, stay sharp in that way. He's able to keep me on point and point out any flaws that I've got. or any habits that I'm developing or anything, and just make sure that everything stays on point.
Definitely. Now, what about your eating, nutrition? I know some people go off the deep end, like they look at it like a break. How are you taking your nutrition? And, you know, you don't have to make weight necessarily right now, but there's a lot of temptation, especially being cooped up in home. How hard has that been, or easy?
Definitely. For me, I stayed on the same nutrition plan, meal planning that I stay on when I'm in training camp, except I just don't have to cut the calories back. So I can eat up. I'm just taking this time to, taking it really as an opportunity to be even healthier, you know what I mean, than I was. Because when you're in training camp, you have to worry about the calories, you have to worry about making the weight for the fight, things like that. So you're eating really healthy, but at the same time, your body's not getting everything that it needs. So I'm taking this time to be training, being in the gym, getting stronger, you know, developing more as a fighter, as an athlete, and then also being able to eat healthy, but eat enough for my body to be recovering throughout this time. Because as a fighter, you don't, especially in the early stages, I'm fighting 4 to 5 times a year. I don't get a lot of times throughout the year where I'm recouping, you know, where I'm letting my body rest and recover. So even though I'm still in the gym, those calories and eating right, you know, helps you recover all the way. So that when I come back and have another fight on the books, I'll be able to train even harder and be fully recovered.
Definitely. Now, the silver lining for combat sports is they had a UFC 249 on Saturday, and they did a closed-door studio setting, no crowd, kind of the essential people, team, doctors, and stuff like that. Did you check that out, the UFC?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big I love to watch MMA, and I was excited for there to be a fight. It's such a big fight, too, and a big card that we could watch and be able to enjoy after all these weeks with no fights. So I miss boxing a lot, though, but it was good to have at least one of the combat sports to have a show that we could all, you know, tune into.
Do you think there's anything that boxing can learn from that first? It was kind of like a guinea pig for combat sports. Do you think that there's something that boxing can learn and start incorporating slowly but surely boxing matches with the closed doors settings?
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before they do start doing that.
Okay.
I think that that's going to be the first. I think they will. I think they'll take from that because obviously they're the first ones to do it, and it's a new thing that these promoters don't have to normally deal with or normally think about. There's so many moving parts. You know, UFC had one of the fighters actually test positive, so
yeah, I've seen that.
I'm sure that there's things that they think after all said and done, they've got, I think, 2 more cards this week that they have coming up. And I'm sure they're going to be making changes after the first one. I'm sure that dude was around people probably closer than they would have liked, being that he tested positive. So there's definitely going to be things that boxing takes from that card and does themselves. But they're definitely going to be doing probably like small TV studios with no fans and things like that, just for the networks to be able to put out fights. And I think that a lot of like the young prospects that do have, you know, TV followings, but aren't demanding such a large gate yet, or packing out stadiums in whatever city they're in. I feel like those are the fighters that are going to be in the best situation. I feel like that's kind of where I'm at because the guys who are on the top level, it's like so much of their paycheck has to do with having that money from the gate. You know what I mean? And that's just me, my personal, you know, opinion of me looking at the situation thinking, all right, how's this all going to play out? It's like, you know, these guys are used to making a certain amount, and so much of that has to do with such a large gate that they're able to bring in. Without fans, I mean, I feel like there's going to have to be some type of pay cut, or they start making everything pay-per-view. But we'll see what happens.
That's definitely a good perspective. And, you know, guys like Canelo who amassed a lot of money and stuff like that. It's like, how do you justify that when a portion of it, no concession, no live gate, no fans, stuff like that. Now, just from a personal perspective, how do you feel with no live audience? Because I know you, even though you're young in your career, you had, when you were on the Caleb Plant Muskatagi card, I was there, and you had a lot of fans that were just cheering, and I'm sure that's a motivator for fighters. So how do you feel? Do you feel a bit torn that the fans can't be there to torn? How much does the crowd influence you or your performance or your energy levels? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think, and that's true, because most of my fights, it has been that way, because a lot of times I'll end up being somewhere one or two fights before the main, and so the crowd started to fill up and things like that. So I have had, the experience of having the fans in there. So it will be different fighting without it. But I was only, an amateur 3-4 years ago, and was when I fought my last amateur fights, and there was barely any fans in the crowd at that point, in certain USA tournaments and world tournaments and things like that. Most of the arena was completely empty, and you only heard really the coaches. So it's not something that I feel like will really faze me too much. I mean, we do spar, twice a week without fans in the gym and things like that. So, I mean, I think that if anything, that adds some extra pressure and extra, nerves and things like that could affect performance negatively. I don't know. Maybe it'll be even better without him. Who knows? I don't really know how it's going to affect things until I get in there and try it, but I know it won't. I don't think it'll affect anything negatively.
That's a good answer, Joey. You've always been smart up top. I like that correlation between your amateur career, because it's exactly like that. You said you went, you told me you went to Russia as an amateur, stuff like that. So you don't really have a bunch of fans, necessarily, unless you go.
A lot of times it's super quiet. A lot of times it's super quiet in the arena, so it's not going to be much different.
So you got to just go back to humble beginnings,
Exactly.
Back to when you're an amateur or back in the gym and stuff. That's a great way that you put that.
Thank you.
Last real quarantine question for you.
Yeah.
Out of the major fights, let's say you were the matchmaker. If you can make let's say they can only produce a budget for one major fight in boxing,
right,
for the rest of the year, what would you spend your budget on? You got Wilder, Fury 3. You got Teofimo Lomachenko. We're supposed to fight.
Are these with fans or with no fans? This fight that we're talking about.
Just a big budget fight that it don't matter, fans or no fans, but it's just a big budget fight to broadcast.
I mean, I want to see Spence and Terrence Crawford. Like, that's the one that I really want to see, So I would, if I was a matchmaker, that's the one that I would want to make in the year, by the year's end. I think
what do you like about it?
I just think it's great styles coming up against each other. They're both technical, but they're both aggressive. They're both,
That's
dynamic
true.
and explosive, but at the same time, they're both really, are guys who somewhat, mastered the sweet science at the same time. It's not like they're just two brawlers. They're both technical guys as well, and they both really good fundamentally. You got Crawford, who's, a switch hitter and can fight both ways, and very obviously technically good. And they both have that dog in them, and they're both, are gritty fighters at the same time and competitive fighters. And, I feel like they're just born rivals. Like, I feel like those two guys put their styles up against each other, put their personalities up against each other. They're both just born winners. So you can't get a better fight than that. And both undefeated. I just don't want to see another situation where it's not, where it's a Pacquiao Mayweather situation where we saw it later than it should have happened. That would be a shame if that happened 2 generations in a row, where, arguably the best fight that can be made doesn't get made as, soon as it should have.
Do you think, with everything that's going around with the pandemic and stuff, do you think it becomes easier or harder for the different networks to work with each other for a big fight like Crawford versus Spence? Because you got a guy on Top Ranking in Crawford, Bud Crawford, and then you got Errol Spence, who is with PBC and aligned with the same people as you. So do you think now promoters would be like, man, we lost money, let's just work together and make the best fights? Or do you think, does that gap become easier to bridge with all that's going on recently?
It's hard to say, because you can spin it both ways. I mean, it could be a situation where they're like, all right, we've been in kind of a drought for a while. Let's hit something really big and kind of try to make up for our loss. And we need to work together and make this big fight happen. Or it could be a situation where they don't want to waste one of their biggest fights they could possibly make, where they don't have the gate and they got to, potentially lose out on millions in that way. So, so they possibly might want to wait until things get back to normal all the way before they do that fight, or they might want to be like, all right, this is the biggest fight we can make. This is the fight that we can make the most money on. Let's work together now and try to make up for what we lost the last couple months.
Definitely. I agree. I think it's an excellent fight. Don't know when, especially with the no crowd thing, because a fight like that, I feel like fans have to be there for that. But, depending on how long this situation lasts, maybe you just roll the dice and say, we just need the best fights.
100%, yeah.
Bud Crawford, Errol Spence, can you pick a winner in that? Or is it just – because every time I think about it, I don't even know who would win, bro.
I really can't say. I really can't say who I think would win.
That's how I feel.
I think it could go either way. And usually I don't, have that answer when I'm asked a question about. I normally can at least pick, a fighter who I think would get the edge. But in that fight, I can't safely say who I think would win the fight. I really can't.
Did you see Crawford's last performance against Aegis Kavalauskas, Mean Machine? I
did, yeah. It was a tough performance for him. I don't know, just being, in the game, I feel like I can tell when somebody's not at their best or not feeling too hot that night, and I feel like that was a night like that. You're not always 100%, so sometimes you have situations where, your body's just not firing on the night when it's supposed to. And I think that, a different night, Crawford makes easier work of that. He took some good shots in that fight. Still finished him, obviously. Looked good at the end, but, he took some good shots, and I don't think that was the best version of Crawford that we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I think another thing is a lot of times fighters are going to get up for – Errol Spence is a known rival, so he's not going to cut – I'm not saying he did cut corners for the Mean Machine fight, but there's no element of surprise, so to speak.
Right.
Because that guy had some good power.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even just mentally, like you said, even if, some guys, they're going to work as hard as they're going to work for him as he's going to work for Errol Spence. But a lot of times it's just mentally, like you said, getting up. Like, he might have been overconfident, oh, who is this guy? Like, it's hard to get, sometimes you can be too comfortable. And I feel like if he fought Errol Spence, he would be, like, turned all the way on mentally. And you know what I mean?
Okay. Errol Spence last performance, Sean Porter, another tough fight, gritty fight. Mm-hmm. He did he dropped Sean Porter late, which some people feel was the deciding factor. Right. What did you take away? Did you think the Spence-Porter fight would be easier? Is that exactly what you expected? What did you think?
No, I expected that. I really did. I think that I expected Sean to do exactly what he did, and I didn't know who was going to win. Me and Mikel, everybody was kind of sleeping on Sean Porter, going into that fight, at least that I saw online and things like that, just like that Errol was just on a whole nother level than him and things like that. But Porter's is, he's as good as anybody in the welterweight division. He is, he's a very hard style to fight for anybody. So I knew that it was a 50-50. I took that as a 50-50 fight. And I told me and Kel both said that we thought those were 50-50, was a 50-50 fight. And at the end of the day, I thought it came down to the knockdown, in my opinion, watching the fight. Came down to the knockdown and maybe one other round. And I thought that's what Errol won it by. And a lot of people, I saw online and things like that, people were talking about Errol not looking good in that fight. Like, I don't know, who wanted him to look better. Like, like he fought a top guy. And that's what happens. You have a good fight.
Yeah.
Boxing fans are so full of it, man. Like, they want to say, we want the best to fight the best. But, yeah, but when they say when the best, they want the best to fight the best. But when the best fight the best, they just don't give anybody any credit for it, I feel like it's so weird. And I don't know if it's just coming off of the Floyd era, and just him being so perfect, throughout. Him being so great. It's like nobody can do enough anymore, And that's one of the things, thinking about, like, this is just a side note, but I was just thinking about this the other day, just thinking about the UFC. Those guys can lose like 3 fights. If they come back, if they had a good career already, it's like their legacy's set. Like, they're a good fighter until the day they retire. People give them their respect. But, like, I think about the way that I see, like, how Danny Garcia is talked about, as if he's just some kind of, like, average fighter. You know what I mean?
I never understood that.
He only lost 2 razor-thin decisions against the same guy who just gave Errol Spence all kinds of trouble, and Keith Thurman, who obviously didn't fight Errol. But Keith Thurman at that time was one of the very best. So how is Danny Garcia talked about like he's average? Like he's right up there at the top. He's got, he didn't get the decisions, but he should be given respect. I just feel like that guy is one of the best examples of it for just a guy who gets barely any respect, as the type of champ he is, and it's crazy to me. Boxing fans want to see the best fight the best, but when you lose a razor thin decision, now all of a sudden you're just average, even though you fought, the best guy. It's like,
yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
That's definitely true, and it's almost ungrateful for the fans to clamor and request the best for the best.
Yeah.
But then the guy gets 1-2 losses, they write him off, say retire, and all this stuff. I'm like,
look at the Wilder fight. Like, Wilder was the man for the last how many years, right? Everybody's just like, oh, he's the hardest puncher ever. He's this and that. Just looked at in such high regard. You barely ever saw anybody say anything negative about him. At least I didn't. And then he takes one loss, and now he's exposed, and he can't box. He's awful. I mean, I see the most crazy things said about him, for losing one fight. And that was another case where the best fought the best in the division.
Facts.
And how on earth is he just, completely dismissed after one fight? He could come back and probably and beat pretty much all the other heavyweights. Maybe even still beat Joshua. But because he lost to Fury in the way that he did, now he's trash. Like, I don't know. It confuses me.
Yeah, it gets crazy. And I also feel like it's kind of like hedging your bet in the sense that Tyson Fury is regarded as the number one heavyweight.
Yep.
So it's like you lost, but you lost to the guy that we are all saying is the number one heavyweight. So It's not really a bad spot. It's not like you lost to some journeyman who was, 50 years old on his way out or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You lost to the guy who's the Ring Magazine and WBC champion of the world.
And I think boxing fans should realize that this is a business. I mean, when I say that, I don't mean it in the way that people will probably think that I'm saying it, as in like, boxing's a business. You shouldn't fight everybody until the money's right and things like that, which is somewhat true. But boxing's a business, and it's all about branding. And people would see the fights happen sooner if fighters and their teams didn't know. First of all, when you fight the very best, there's always a risk of losing. And the fans determine that, because the fighter and the promoters are going to know that if they lose, which they're taking a chance of losing when you fight the very best, if you lose that fight and you lose all of your momentum, all your respect, you get basically dropped and thrown to the curb. That's not good for business. So if these fans, showed respect to the people who fought the best, perfect example. Have you seen the way, Ego, you can tell me if you agree with me or if you've noticed the same thing. Have you seen the way people talk about Mikey Garcia on social media and things?
I see
just like he's absolute garbage, because he moved up 2 weight classes and fought Errol Spence. How is he trash? Tell me, I can't understand.
He lost A4 division champ.
But he's garbage, and everybody. I mean, I see he probably takes as much hate as anybody that I've seen, and for what? He's someone who reached for greatness and failed. Okay, how is that something to be dogged about? And the things people say about him. That's a prime example of what I'm talking about. You're going to see less and less of people reaching for greatness because boxing fans don't actually want to see what they say they want to see.
Yeah,
it's just
true.
Crazy.
Now, I do want to touch on the Errol Spence Crawford fight still. Mm-hmm. You said you don't know quite a winner. They both had kind of tough fights, but obviously Spence had the higher opposition in terms of most people's perspective. One major thing that's happened is that the whole Errol Spence accident has happened since then. Yeah. Mentally, do you think he should take a tune-up, or do you think with the pandemic and everything going on, you think he'll be ready for top-level guys? Because he says he wants to fight Danny Garcia, Pacquiao, guys like that, straight off of what happened. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think, maybe if you were in a similar situation coming off a bad, car accident, injury, anything like that, do you think you would opt for more of a tune-up just to kind of feel, as a fighter, how you feel in the gym versus the night of the fight could be two different things. So what's your theory?
Well, I think that he could figure out how he feels in the gym. I think he knows, better than anybody. if he's still feeling like he's got some rust in the gym, then he should probably take, a tune-up and take a fight to get back into the swing of things. But, me, if I'm feeling good in the gym, then I have no reason to believe I'm not going to feel good on the night of the fight. So if I went through a car accident, the first thing that I'd want to do is get in the gym and get back in shape and do some sparring and things like that before I chose my opponent, so that I can decide if I feel like I'm 100%.
Now, one thing Errol Spence has said very openly and candidly is that he said he was kind of living on the edge, like he was feeling himself beat Sean Porter and stuff like that. And he says this is really a second chance at life. So he feels blessed to just be here. And he mentions one of the mistakes that he made was allowing his off-season weight to go up a little bit higher than he normally would have in the past. He said he was touching like 189, 190. Why is it important from your perspective to manage your weight and not go over a certain threshold? I know, and we've talked about this before, but I want the fans to hear your perspective on weight management as a fighter.
Right. Yeah, it's important because when you leave all that weight on until a fight gets scheduled, then the training camp essentially becomes basically just a fat camp. You have to constantly be worrying about losing the weight. And when you have to worry about losing the weight, then you can't be strategic about how you're training, because you can't, overtraining is a real thing. So a lot of fighters, you're dieting so much to lose the weight, but you have to keep the training up because you have to lose the weight. See what I'm saying? So you can't take a day off running, even though, you're feeling overtrained. You can't,
Oh, that's a good point. That's a real good point. So you can basically, you're saying you can overtrain from the necessity of having a fat camp and not being able to recover, rest, R&R your body.
100%.
Wow. Great.
Another thing is, I like, Virgil Hunter always said 10 pounds over was a good off-season weight, 10 pounds, which is hard for guys to keep. It takes a lot of dedication to keep 10 pounds over the weight. You can't just eat whatever you want out of camp. That's something that I maintain, and it's a little bit easier for me because I'm younger. But it's still, I can't go eat whatever I want out of camp and things like that. I got to watch the scale and make sure that I'm staying, that 10 pounds, because when you're that 10 pounds over, especially using, the weight cutting techniques that a lot of fighters use, 10 pounds is pretty much on weight. So with that being said, when you're in training camp, say you have a really hard workout, you're starting to feel overtrained and the body needs food. You can give it that food and you can afford to, because you never went really overweight. But a guy who's 30 pounds over and he's just trying to cut the weight, he can't eat up for a week. Sometimes when we're in training camp, we'll be like, all right, the work's really getting heavy at this point. We're going to eat up, for a week and not worry about calories, and we're going to give the body what it needs. We can do that because we stayed on weight. And that's something that we're learning, that we learned, being in Cali. And that's something that we're continuing to learn about, is just the process and how important that is. But we're definitely further along than a lot of guys are, because a lot of guys, like you said, they'll come in so heavy, and it just, Errol's obviously knew better. It's just hard. Sometimes the lifestyle gets to you, and
you're making them M's too. You start making some M's, and you hang out with celebrity friends and stuff. They can do whatever they want.
Yep.
Like if you're a rapper or entertainer, actor, you can eat whatever you want, drink alcohol, whatever. But as a fighter, you gotta scale it back sometimes.
And that's why it's hard when you're a fighter. You got to remember that, like, you're a fighter. You're not a, these other people, they have it good in a sense. They get to.
Oh yeah.
They don't have to worry about that stuff. We do have to worry about this stuff. We have to worry about that stuff every day. So, in my opinion, I just rather not even be around it. And that's why I don't mess with that, and I don't. I'm not even saying like celebrities and stuff, and that's something that I'll continue to take because, I'm not at that place where Errol is. He's got the access to whatever people he wants to hang out with, things like that. But I'm talking about even on a smaller scale. Just I'm college age. I got lots of buddies. I'm in a small town, things like that. But I try not to tempt myself and be around situations that I know could cause me to be undisciplined, because I know I can't be like that, and I know the stakes are high. So for me, I'd rather not even tempt myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's definitely wise words. Now, I want to go back to your history because a lot of people don't know you also spent a lot of time and trained with Virgil Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Andre Ward, since we're talking about discipline, it would be like wrong of me to not mention Andre Ward's discipline. And one thing that I noticed that was crazy with Ward is throughout his career, he just remained disciplined like heck. And he had I remember I went in his gym like days after the Alexander Brand fight was announced. And this wasn't considered a guy who could beat Andre Ward. And he was in the gym training for like 2-3 hours, like he was fighting Kovalev or something for what was supposed to be a tune-up fight or easy fight to get to Kovalev. So what did you learn from Andre Ward's discipline as a fighter that you kind of take with you that kind of matches with the weight and the weight talk and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, what I saw when I watched Andre train, and even before that, just, you know, he speaks it. I feel like that's part of his message is just discipline. So he's always spoke on that. But really seeing it and witnessing it is what, to this day, you know, I've said this in a couple other, you know, conversations before, but it's what honestly keeps me accountable to this day, even though I'm not in the Bay right now, or, you know, and Dre's retired and things like that. I watched Dre train for Kovalev, you know, how many years ago now, I don't even know. But it's still what keeps me accountable in the gym, keeps me accountable out of the gym, is that man, you know, is just seeing him train the way that he does, because I know that I don't want to be, you know, I know that you can't take any shortcuts in the ring. And it's a lot, you know, it's a dangerous game, you know. One shot can put you out and in front of, you know, everybody. And I would do anything to not be in that situation, to be on the end that comes out, you know, with the victory and with the win. So he never lost. So I got to see him. So when I see him and think about how he trained and the way that he lived, I'm willing to do that, you know, if it means, you know, to come out on top.
Definitely. Now, switching gears real quick, Ryan Garcia, he's been, you know, he's very popular online. He had, I guess, Floyd Mayweather made some comment about him, so he kind of got at Floyd a little bit, said that Pacquiao has a better legacy than Floyd Mayweather, and he said, I'm sorry that offended you. In your opinion, it's hard because they're both Hall of Famers, but I think Floyd, me personally, I think Floyd has, you know, he beat Pacquiao, so I think he done more, but what do you think, legacy versus legacy, Floyd versus Pacquiao? Do you think Floyd gets the credit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he gets the credit, but I think that has to do with, I think that in I don't know how long, you know, but I think in the next couple of decades, I think that's when Floyd's legacy will be appreciated more, you know, a lot like some of the great ones beforehand, you know, like Ali, and even, you know, even Tyson, you know, just the love that people have for him and respect that people have for his legacy, I feel like came a little bit later after he retired, even though people were in awe of him when he was in his prime. But there was so much, like, you know, hatred for him at that time, you know, at the same time, where now you can't find anybody who hates Mike Tyson, really. Like, everybody loves Mike Tyson, you know. And I feel like that's because a lot of the, you know, as time goes on, people forget about the outside of the ring stuff. People forget about the things that happen, you know, in their life. Everybody's judging people, judge Mayweather for how he lives, hate him because of how he, you know, acts, or hate him because of, you know, they're jealous of him and things like that, where people that kind of all fades away and people just look at the legacy of what he actually did in the ring. I feel like that could be a case like that. And same thing with Ali. You know, you can't find anybody who doesn't like Ali, even when he was, you know, still alive. It didn't just take him passing for that to happen. It just took time to go by a little bit. But I think that's a prime example, because when you go on and look at Ray Robinson's YouTube videos, who is the guy who people say is the greatest boxer of all time. When you watch his full fights or his highlights or anything, you can pick any video of Ray Robinson and go down to the comments, and everybody says everything that you see in the comments is the argument about him versus Floyd, and people saying that, oh, he would kill Floyd, or Floyd would, you know, beat him, or things like that. That's because Floyd is that guy in our era. You know, people aren't really talking about that way with Pacquiao. You know, And even though I'm not taking away from Pacquiao's legacy because he's got an incredible legacy, but he's just one step under Floyd. I don't think anybody can really, argue with that. And I think that, people will argue with it, but I don't think people can really logically argue with it considering he lost to Floyd. And I also think there's some other things that I think that kind of maybe taint Manny's legacy that, I won't go into, but that I think people kind of recognize.
All right, fair enough. But the other thing I noticed is Ryan Garcia, he's kind of went in on a lot of people right now. He says like him and Abner Mares are going through it.
Yeah.
How does it feel, I guess, to want to prove yourself and you want the big fights, but maybe the promotion or the business side of it is not caught up to what you're requesting?
Right. I'm sorry. I didn't really. Will you repeat that question?
So basically Ryan Garcia, he's going off on a lot of people right now on social media and calling for fights. Like he's saying, he said, what about Lomachenko? He said he'll fight Pacquiao next year. Like just different things. How does it feel to be like a young fighter and he's saying he's ready for all these fights, Gervonta Davis and stuff like that, but De La Hoya and Golden Boy haven't put him in the position to fulfill any of those things. Yeah. So how does that feel? Or like, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Just in general, calling for Tank Davis and stuff?
Yeah. I think Ryan could arguably be ready right now, to fight those guys. I think that he's well on his way. And I don't think he's crazy. Like people talk like he's calling them out, but there's nothing behind it. Like I feel like there is something behind it. I feel like those fights could be made soon. I mean, I think that Linares is probably going to be his next fight. That's a big step up for him, and I think he'll beat Linares. It's going to be a good fight, but I think he'll beat him. And with that being said, I think he's about a year away from getting to get those big fights. I think that Gervonta and him both know, and Gervonta's people and Ryan's people both know that that's the fight that's going to be made. It's going to be the big money fight. And I think they both believe in that themselves too. Like I think that Gervonta genuinely believes he's going to win. I think Ryan genuinely believes he can beat Tank too. And Ryan's extremely confident right now, and he has every reason to be. I mean, he's been looking fantastic in the ring. And he's got his new coaches that are really, doing well with him, teaching him well. But I think Golden Boy and them, I think Golden Boy believes in him too. I just think that they know that they've got their investment and that they're going to do everything at the right time because Ryan's only 21. There's no reason to rush it. They've got somebody who's built an incredible brand, incredible name for himself at a young age. Yeah. Now at this point, all they got to do is wait for that perfect time and then capitalize on it. And I just think they're trying not to put, move things just a little bit too quick. They'd rather be a little bit later than too quick, so.
Makes sense.
They're going to make some big money. And, Ryan, what the name that he's made for himself is incredible. You just got to respect it. And he's confident. He's calling everybody out. And those fights are going to get made soon. He's a hater's worst nightmare. I think that he's like a prime example of that. He's easily hateable. People love to hate him because he says what he's going to do. And so far he's done it, every bit of it, and that's the type of guy that haters hate to see, because they want him to be all hyped so bad and they want him to fall. But I don't think it's happening anytime soon. He's just getting better.
Yeah. I think a good look for him.
My bad. Hold up.
No, it's all good. I think a good look for him was joining Canelo's gym because I think he had a couple rocky performances, Jason Velez, and I think the fight after that. But since he got with Eddie Reynoso, I think he's looked better. Did you have, when you were in the amateurs, did you know Ryan Garcia?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Because you guys are how old are you right now?
Yeah, I'm 19. Oh, no, 20 now. I just turned 20. We're a year apart.
You're younger than?
I just turned 20, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I'm a new 20-year-old. He was always 1 year above me in the
So you remember in the amateurs?
Yeah, I did. I was at a few different tournaments where we kind of got tight and would hang out at the weigh-ins and stuff like that. Okay. And then after the fights and stuff, he was always cool. And I've ran into him. I haven't seen him in a while. I ran into him when he was like 10-0 the last time I saw him. We ran
Okay.
into each other at a Canelo fight and talked for a little bit. It was cool to see him and stuff.
When certain guys are amateurs, you don't really know what they're going to become. So I'm sure he wasn't the internet, big popular guy at the time. Did you still see the speed and stuff? Like, was he known for speed?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I watched 2 of him and Devin's fights. I watched one that Ryan won, and I watched one that Devin won.
Like, you watched it live or like?
Yeah, live. Yeah, live. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. Okay.
Yeah. I watched
like
one.
5-6
One of
times.
them. One of them Ryan won, and one of them that I saw Devin won. And
Okay.
but both were. One of them was more one-sided than the other, and it was the one that I saw Ryan win. And then the second one, Devin. Everyone was kind of, because that was the time before. Like, I watched 2 consecutive fights in different tournaments, and Ryan won the one before and won pretty like handily, almost like super
so
fast.
Ryan Garcia beat Devin Haney. You're saying it was no questions asked.
Yeah, no questions asked. I mean, Ryan was like, that was when like the speed was crazy. Like he was, and it still is. I'm saying, but like that was when I saw it for the first time.
What?
And he was just letting freaking huge hooks fly, and it was just hard for Devin to like figure out. But then what gave me a lot of respect for Devin is then in the next tournament, you know, it was so cool, like seeing like it was a big fight in the tournaments. You know what I mean? Like everybody at the tournament would go to their ring because it was like 2 named, you know, amateurs fought, and like every once in a while that would happen where like there was the guys at the tournaments that you knew were probably going to win, you know, but then every once in a while 2 of those guys would be in the same bracket, you know, and then that was when it was cool. You know, you saw 2 guys that you knew, and other than that, it was usually a cakewalk. You go to the tournament, whoop everybody, but then sometimes you would meet up with a different guy who like is in the pros.
That's your contemporary.
International, yeah, exactly. That you knew, you know, was going to end up being a pro and things like that. But that was one of those situations, so it was cool to see. But everybody would go around the ring, and then in that second fight that I saw them fight, Devin and them. Devin just really made an adjustment and just looked really good. It was still a good fight, but Devin just boxed really well and ended up winning the decision, I think, on a split. And it was really impressive to see Devin, you know, come out after getting beat and then come back and win. So I think that was the last time they fought that I'm talking about there. But yeah, man, I mean, it's gonna be sweet to see them two fight. You know, it was fun to watch. I really like to watch Devin in the amateurs. Love to watch Shakur in the amateurs. You know, it was cool to watch.
Now you just sold it, man, because I already wanted to see the fight with Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, and they kind of go back and forth. You hear different things, but yeah, you sold it. I definitely want to see them fight, you know, in the future.
Yeah. I mean, people don't understand. You know, people say that like Ryan's all hype and things like that, but you can't be all hype and be a top amateur. He won like something like, I don't even know how many national championships he won, but he had really solid amateur pedigree. The guy that he beat in the tournament, the last tournament that we were in the same tournament together was the tournament before he turned pro. And he beat a guy who's also a really good dude. And he's hopeful for the Olympics, the next Olympics. So his name's Tiger Johnson. I don't know if you've ever talked to him or heard of him. But he beat him. Ryan Garcia beat that guy. And that was the year that – so it went back and forth. Juniors would go to world championships one year, and then the youth team would go the next year. And you had to qualify at the national championship in Reno that I'm talking about right now. So it was their year because we went to Russia the year before. So it was the youth year. Whoever won the youth nationals went to the worlds in Russia. And Ryan in the finals beat Tiger Johnson and won the nationals and didn't take his spot in the world team and turned pro at 16 like Devin did. Instead of going to the world championships, decided not to. That guy he beat won the whole tournament, which is an extremely hard championship to win. He won the worlds, and Ryan beat him pretty handily, you know. So it was like people think, you know, guys are all hype, but like you can't. People are developing in the pros, but at the end of the day, if you have that pedigree and you're, you know, a top amateur, then it's all going to work out, and that's what you're seeing with Ryan right now. He had a couple of performances, like you said, but that's just in his developmental stages. Now he's getting to the point where he's kind of coming into his man prime type, you know, skills, and he's not even in his prime yet. So people, you know, will see more and more of that out of these guys.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it. I do think he's improved since he's joined the Canelo gym. Canelo versus Gennady Golovkin. I got to ask you, is there any way Triple G wins the third fight? They're talking about they could fight sometime. Is it over for that trilogy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's over for Triple G at least. You know, I think that. Yeah, his run I think is over, and I think that Canelo probably stops him if they fight again. The jig is up.
Wow. Last question: Wilder versus Tyson Fury 3. What do you think? Some people, like you said earlier, a lot of people are dogging Wilder, and they think some people are saying it's over for him, and you know, all kinds of stuff. Paper champion, talking about the suit, weighed 45 pounds and stuff. Can he win the Fury fight, the third Fury fight?
It's hard to say. You know, I mean, I think I've said since that fight happened that if they do the rematch, that I think that they need to at least take some time, maybe even take a fight in between it, because I don't think that fight's going anywhere. I think Wilder should step aside, let Joshua fight Wilder, and then, fight Fury, and then still get that rematch with Fury and probably get to fight Joshua too. I just think that he should take some time, because the reason he lost that fight was because of fundamental flaws. That Wilder started boxing late, and that's why he has such a hard time fighting backwards. He's a little bit uncoordinated, and he hasn't worked on that. He never really had to. So Fury came in and exposed his problem backing up and fighting backing up. So I think that that's something that's not going to be solved in one training camp. I think that's something that needs a little bit of time. Not all the time in the world, but I think he can learn it. I just think it needs more time than what he's giving himself if they kind of come right back in and fight. I think that he can win it because he's got that power that is so devastating. So he can beat anybody on any given night. But I think that if he's given himself the best chance to win the fight, he takes a little bit of time and gets a tune-up fight under his belt. That'd be, if I was his handler, or if it was my loss and I'm coming back, I think that that's what I do, even though obviously as a competitor, you want to come back in and get that win as fast as possible.
Perfect. Now, it was good chatting with you. Where can the fans follow you?
Yeah, follow me at Joey D. Spencer on Instagram and at JSNation_ on Twitter.
All right, man. I look forward to some new news coming. Hopefully we get you a studio fight or something. I'll definitely tell people on the channel about it, and
Thank you, Ego.
We'll get it rocking.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, appreciate your time as always.
Yeah. All right, man.
Thank you.
See you later, brother. Bye.
All right.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.